Let's get rolling on a Tuesday. Glasses in session. We go to the Glasser guest line, and we welcome on Michael Katz. Give Michael a follow on X, at Michael L. Katz, Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, where he covers the Ole Miss Rebels. And, Michael, you tell me, has anything happened in your neck of the woods over the last 72 hours or anything like that? Any news that we should know about?
I'm not even kidding. I slept 12 hours on Monday. It was the first time I've slept in like 2 weeks because I know that the guy who was head coach here liked to get up early and do yoga, and I just never knew if he was going to tweet something out that was newsworthy. So a lot of 5:30 a.m. wake up calls, which is not necessarily my cup of tea. But that era is done here. It's been a pretty wild few days.
Yeah, no question. And look, we all knew this was a possibility that he could leave, and certainly LSU was at the top of the list. And I'm sure you and other people thought about what it would be like if Kiffin did end up leaving Ole Miss, but did it even surpass your expectations for kind of how ugly it ended with Kiffin and the Rebels?
I think historically, if you look at how things have ended at places Lane has been, this shouldn't be surprising. Remember Tennessee leaving in the middle of the night. He got fired via PowerPoint with the Raiders. The tarmac at USC getting fired before the national title game by Nick Saban. So there is a precedent for these sorts of things. But I think what is so stunning about it was, really the last 6 years here, he had built up so much goodwill, not just with the Oxford community, but really the national college football world, that this was a different dude who had matured and was going to make choices in different manners. And, by the time the dust settled on Sunday, this was just another crazy disaster the way it ended. Burning the bridges. Again, the things that Lane did here, you can't argue the success. Ole Miss has had 11 10-win seasons ever, and 4 of them were in the last 5 years. He's done incredible things. This is a playoff team. But man, you go from hero to villain real fast when you leave the way he did, and with reports of wanting to coach the playoff, and if he didn't get his way, he would take the offensive staff with him immediately. Just all kinds of stuff that I think that we thought he might be past in terms of the maturity and whatnot, because of everything that he's been painted as the last few years. But here we are again, another ugly breakup. I will say it was very, very jarring to see him wearing LSU stuff at his press conference yesterday. That was wow, it's it actually happened.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That was crazy. It was also crazy, when you're hearing all the reporting, and obviously the reports are coming out that he wants any coach that is coming to LSU with him needs to be on the plane as he's leaving. And as you know, a bunch of offensive coaches ended up going with Lane Kiffin. So can you just tell us all, as Ole Miss gets ready for the playoff, what's that offensive staff going to look like? Has Pete Golding, and they talked about who's going to be calling plays, who's going to be filling in on some of these other position coaches?
That's going to be question number one, I think, I think where his introductory press conference is tomorrow afternoon. I think that is going to be one of the biggest things that needs to get figured out. Is it sounds like most of the defensive staff stayed, and that makes sense because it's Pete Golding, obviously. It sounds like Joe Judge, the quarterbacks coach, was going to stay here regardless. He's got a really good relationship with Trinidad Chambliss. But Charlie Weiss and all these other guys are kind of up in the air. I know Charlie Weiss went on the plane, but there's also reports that there was an opening for him to come back if he wanted to. So there's still a lot of moving parts. I don't know. There's a lot of unknown in terms of how the operation is going to work. And I think they got 2.5 weeks or whatever to get that figured out by the time the playoff starts. It's going to be really interesting to see what the offensive staff does look like. But it sounds like Joe Judge is that sounds like that's kind of a for sure one. And I don't know if he would call plays if he's the one left. But I do think having your quarterback coaches is probably going to be a pretty good one to have at least.
Definitely. I think, and we're all interested in how this team is going to look without Kiffin and these offensive coaches on the sideline. We were talking off air, and a bunch of people are they're comparing Florida State's situation a couple of years ago when Travis got hurt to Ole Miss's situation, and this isn't the same team. But the end of the day, I mean, Kiffin's not throwing any passes. He's not making any tackles. He's not catching any touchdowns. Like, how different do you think Ole Miss is going to look, and how big of an impact do you really think Kiffin made? I mean, none of us really know until we see it, but how big of an adjustment you think it's going to be?
I mean, it's hard to know, but I will say I think at this point in the season, like, they kind of are what they are, right? Like, I don't know if you're going to get a drastic difference because, you've been running things a certain way and players know how things are run. I know the players are banding together to see this thing out. I don't know how different the operation is going to look, but I do think that the comparison to Florida State is one that has been very mind-boggling, I guess is probably the best term, just because we had data points of what Florida State looked like without Jordan Travis. It was a very, very different team. They struggled to move the ball. It was ugly. And they dropped, one or two spots in the 14 playoff era. They would have still made a 12-team era. The bottom line is we don't know what Ole Miss is going to look like. What we do know is Trinidad Chambliss is still the quarterback. They have one of the best running backs in the country and one of the best wide receiver cores. And you got your defensive coordinator is going to be running the show. So, is it going to look the same as it has? I don't know, but it's hard for me to see it looking too drastically different just because we're so far into the season. I don't know how much could realistically change for a game, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. We're talking with Michael Katz, talking Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin here on Send It In. Do you think we see any of these players opt out at all, or do you think we see any of them enter the transfer portal? We all know how kind of crazy it is with the college football situation that we're in, and we saw it last year. I mean, during bowl season, even teams that were still in the playoff, maybe backups, guys realized they weren't going to play. So these other teams that are building for next season, they start poaching some of the players off of their roster. Do you think we start to see some of that with Ole Miss over the next couple of weeks? Maybe some of these guys starting to enter the portal or opt out?
There's always a chance, and that's, you just never know how that's going to end up. I will say, though, this does seem to be a really determined team, especially how the last few weeks have gone, that really wants to see this thing out the right way. Last year, everyone played in the Gator Bowl, and even like the first round picks, they were really determined to see that through. And this is, I know it's a way different situation, but it's hard for me to see major contributors not wanting to be a part of this. This is why you came here, right? I know NIL is great and all those sorts of things, but the bottom line is these are competitors and they're trying to win a national championship. And for the first time in the modern era, Ole Miss actually has a chance to do that. I think that they want to be a part of that. Their coach, he left them for a rival. I think that's got to be a really bitter taste too. I think that they really want to show that, like, hey, we're going to be okay.
And that's what I want to leave you with, Michael. I mean, do you still think this team is good enough to win the whole thing? What do you think Ole Miss's ceiling is? Is it national semifinal? Is it maybe just win a game or so? Or do you think this team, from what you've seen all year, they're good enough to win the whole thing?
This team has surpassed my expectations all year. I mean, hand up, I said 8-4, 9-3 were probably the most realistic things for this team. You lost 18 starters. I mean, you had no idea what this thing was going to look like. And then add in the fact that you have a Division II quarterback who takes over. I mean, this was just an unbelievable story. I saw they should be 12-0. They should have beaten Georgia on the road. I mean, they were up 9 after 3 quarters and let that thing slip away. I mean, they've played good teams. They beat Oklahoma on the road. They beat the heck out of Tulane, who might be the representative from the group of 6. I'm not going to doubt them anymore. I think absolutely they can win a first round game. I think they can make it to one of the big bowls. After that, I don't know. I think it's matchup dependent a little bit too, but this team has not. They stepped up to the plate against everyone. Again, the Georgia on the road at Georgia is a game that they had. I mean, they were one fourth down stop away from winning that game. So, if they can do those sorts of things, I'm not going to count them out. I will say, I think winning a first round playoff game, that seems very feasible for sure.
Can't wait to see how it all plays out the rest of the year. Michael Katz, kind enough to join us. Give him a follow again on X at Michael L. Katz. Check him out, Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, covering Ole Miss. Michael, appreciate the time, my friend. Go get some more sleep, catch up on that, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.